Every day, our lives can be filled with distractions. Some can just come off as harmful, but sometimes it can be way worse, sometimes even deadly. And on one day in Chatsworth, California of 2008, this was the case. This is a Chatsworth train collision 17 years later. Robert M. Sanchez, who was 46 years old at the time, would start his 11-hour split shift. For those wondering, a split shift is basically where a person's work is split into two shifts. For Robert, his first began at 5:54 a.m. After finishing his first shift of the day, he went off duty at 9:26 a.m. His second shift would start around 3:03 p.m. After he returned, he prepared for his next run from LA Union Station to Moore Park on the Ventura County line. This train was run by the Southern California Regional Rail Authority, or SCAS, but more well known as Metrolink. This would be train number 111 and contained F59 PH 855 and 3 Bombardier bi-level coaches. The time would be around 3:35 p.m. PDT when the train departed Union Station, westbound to Moore Park. Before this run, Rob would send a couple of text messages to a 16-year-old rail enthusiast who frequently talked with Rob since they met a while back. Meanwhile, further up the line, a Union Pacific train, nicknamed the Leesdale Local, was heading eastbound, departing Oxnard from a previous run that was completed. This train was run by two SD-70 Aces, 8485 and 8491, pulling 17 freight cars. This train's destination was Gemco, and had a 3-man crew containing an engineer, conductor, and brakeman. Even though these trains would meet, it would be on a single track, which means one would have to wait on a siding at either Chatsworth or Simi Valley to let the other one through. Signals were also implemented at the sidings to ensure that locomotives will wait for the other trains to pass through. The system was even improved back in the 90s for Metrolink trains. Things remained stagnant for a while. However, it would only be around an hour or so. At Chatsworth, Rob would be scheduled to halt his train in the siding from the red signal to let the Leesdale Local slip through, unless it was waiting for it at Simi Valley. However, this did not go through with Rob, and instead, he proceeded past the signal, warning him not to enter the stretch of track, but it was already too late.
Fire Department paramedic on 58, what's the address of the emergency?
Yes, I'm on the Metrolink train. We just left Chatsworth Station heading towards Stevie. We had a collision with something. We had a whole bunch of people going out, bleeding, and on the floor.
Is that train?
It's the Metrolink train.
Okay, can you give me the intersection or something close to,
We're almost at the first tunnel going into towards Stevie Valley.
towards Simi Valley?
Yeah, we're on the Metrolink train. We just left the Chatsworth Station.
Right, but
We're heading towards Simi Valley. We just collided with something. I don't know what. But I've got several people who are injured and bleeding.
Okay, but are you in Simi Valley now?
No, we're not. We are real close. We're just at the end of Chatsworth, probably. Tell them we hit a freight train. Oh.
Okay, hold on a second, ma'am, okay? I mean, sir, hold on.
Yes,
Hang
sir.
on.
Both trains were approximately going around 40 miles per hour and collided head-on at 4:22 p.m. Both the lead units and the first coach of the Metrolink train toppled over onto their side, with the front end of 855 being crushed. The impact was so strong, in fact, 855 telescoped itself backward 52 feet into the first coach, igniting a fire. Many of the freight cars also derailed, with some damaging the cab of 8491. Many 911 calls were responded to, with the first one being at 4:23 p.m., picked up by the LA City Fire Department from a nearby resident. Dispatch categorized the call as a vehicle incident, but changed to a derail incident from the additional calls. The first responders were sent to the site from a residential area that lies near the railroad. Once the crew got to the scene after cutting through a backyard fence, the sight was devastating. Even the captain was horrified from everything he saw, and he immediately called for ambulances and other firefighters. But if that wasn't enough, he called in for all available search and rescue units. Many from the emergency workers responded on scene to rescue the injured and trapped people from the coaches. When extinguishing the fire, some firefighters heard a sound coming from the cab of UP 8485. It sounded like someone was pounding on the windshield, and when firefighters checked, they found the engineer and conductor inside the cab, trapped. Even though the brakeman escaped the wreckage from the rear cab door, it was more difficult for the two crew members in the lead unit. The right side door, which was the side of the engineer, was too high for them to reach, and the front cab door was blocked by the Metrolink train. The left cab door was also likely blocked, so they had to resort to breaking the windshield, which was unsuccessful. It was a long process, but firefighters managed to slice the rubber off from the windows to remove it, finally rescuing the crew. Unfortunately, 25 people perished in the wreckage, including Robert. Two of the victims later died in the hospital days after. An off-duty police officer was among the dead, and even one was from the 2005 Glendale train collision, 3 years before. Many of the victims were also residents of Simi Valley and or Moore Park, likely traveling home from work, but some never made it back. Over 130 people were also injured, with some having to be transported by air ambulances. This catastrophe was considered the worst and the most deadly incident of Metrolink's history, and the worst ever since the Big Bayou wreck back in 1993. And there still lies the question, what could have caused this to happen? Beginning the investigation, NTSB looked for evidence on how all this could happen. There was one thing about the sighting: it wasn't equipped with PTC or positive train control, a safety system to prevent trains from colliding or having accidents. And without PTC, the crew had to stay alert. And there was much debate on this, stating it could have been a malfunction of the signal that caused the accident. With investigators having a possible lead of a signal malfunction, they did more investigating. When the driver of the freight train stepped in, he stated no red signal were passed on his side. Evidence was from a footage of a camera inside the cab of the train so it couldn't have been a malfunction. The question still remained as the NTSB dug further into the crash, and they soon found out that Rob, the engineer of Metrolink Train 111, was quote-unquote texting while driving. And since this was during an operation of a locomotive, the policies for cell phone usage during this procedure is a big red flag. It stated that the people running the train are obligated to focus on the job. Although Rob's phone was never recovered, the rail fan he was talking to did cooperate in the investigation and managed to recover most of the messages. Rob and the rail fanner also talked in the past 7 days before the incident, in times that Rob was working and not working. In some of these messages, Rob would try to coordinate with the rail fanner to operate Train 111. Later the same day, the accident happened at around 7:45 p.m., and Rob would pick the rail fan up from Moore Park and until Montalvo. A few messages resurfaced stating this: "Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to getting you in the cab and showing you how to run a locomotive." OMG, dude, me too. Running a locomotive, having all of that in the palms of my hands, it's a great feeling. And I'll do it so good from all my practice on the simulator. I'm gonna do all the radio talking, you're gonna run the locomotive, and I'm gonna tell you how to do it. The records on Rob's phone indicated that during 6:05 a.m. and 4:22 p.m., the day of the crash, he received a total of 95 text messages. Since Sanchez was a solo engineer, he would be obligated to report the signals to the conductor. The data reports show, however, the last two signals were never reported. The conductor even told that Sanchez reported the last signal at Chatsworth was green, which was likely a signal failure. Even bystanders told the signal was green. The NTSB, though, didn't buy it since these types of failures are rare, so this theory was rejected. With everything wrapped up, the NTSB concluded the probable cause was likely the failure of the Metrolink engineer to respond and stop at a red signal, most likely from being distracted by the use of a cell phone during work hours. In the end, the 3 locomotives and some rolling stock were damaged beyond repair, written off, and scrapped. After this incident, there were plans to implement PTC. In the same year, the Rail Safety Improvement Act of 2008 was launched to add PTC throughout the U.S. railroad network. It passed, so work to add a PTC was on. Most Class 1 railroad main lines were to add the system, including intercity and commuter lines, with a deadline of December 31st, 2015. However, most railroads had little to no work with implementing PTC, so the deadline was extended more. Another accident during this time, which was the Philadelphia train derailment of 2015, which was cited by the board as a factor in failing to implement PTC earlier. Metrolink was successful in adding PTC to its lines, and it's been active on over 300 miles the company owns, but plenty of track are from UP or BNSF. Not only that, but a few memorials were built throughout the line to commemorate the people that sadly lost their lives. After the first anniversary of the Chatsworth train collision, a ceremony was held at Stony Point Park. Every second in the future can always be a mystery, but we must stay focused on the things that we're doing and not stay distracted for too long, or else we never know what will happen next.